will talk some NFL, though, now. As we look at the AFC East, we got the NFL draft coming up in a couple of weeks. And the Buffalo Bills, no surprise, once again going to be heavy favorites to repeat as AFC East champions. Tim Barbalace, their win total is at 11.5 right now, going in to the upcoming season. Over, under for you if you had to bet Bills, 11.5 wins.
I probably would stay away, but if I'm forced to bet it, I guess I would go over. I'm not a fan of this division. I know we're going to get to the Dolphins in a second, but I see their season really. I think Mike McDaniel is probably out of Miami after this upcoming season. This Bills team, they need help defensively, and they need to get bigger, and we know that they struggled to stop the run, but they need kind of help all along the defensive line, corners they could use. I wouldn't mind seeing Josh Allen get some more weapons in the draft as well, but I think in part because of the division, in part because every year that you have Josh Allen under center, you're going to have a chance. Slight lean over, but I probably would stay off.
I probably would go over too if I had to bet it. Corner is plus 310 and safety is plus 525 for the Buffalo Bills. These odds have moved quite a bit. Offensive lineman, I think at one point was like the third favorite. I think safety and O-line have flipped spots, which didn't make sense to me because, again, if you're the Bills, Josh Allen just won MVP. The O-line was great. And I think Allen benefits from not having like a superstar wide receiver that he feels the need to like force feed the ball to, right?
And that's what happened with Stephon Diggs, of course.
Bingo. So we saw him limit the turnovers this past year.
That was the big thing.
That was the big thing. And I think, again, because of that was he didn't have Diggs anymore. He could just play football as quarterback, just find the open man. So I think the Bills probably end up going with a defensive lineman or an edge rusher. Von Miller's not getting any younger. With the other quarterbacks that you have to play in the AFC if you want to go to a Super Bowl, Mahomes, Allen, or Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, all those guys, I think they got to get a pass rusher. So I kind of like the minus 105 for the Bills.
And what goes in their favor is this defensive line and edge rusher class is really, really deep. We've had on several draft people, and they just praise it, man. We have this former scout executive of the Bears, Bobby DePaul, on, and he's been scouting this defensive line class for Sumer Sports. It's a scouting network. He was telling us a year ago, looking at it, like, hey, this is a really good class, and next year's not so much. So you can see you're probably going to see some teams really lean into it.
Makes sense. The Miami Dolphins, their win total is at 8.5 for the upcoming draft, for the upcoming season. Miami, the kind of last 2 years, Tim, it's been the same thing for them. You know, they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. They can't beat the top teams in the NFL. I've never thought Mike McDaniel was any good. People just fall in love with the fact that he's quirky and, you know, he's like a nerd on the sidelines as an NFL coach. But the dude is not a leader of men. You know, like he's just like, I think he's a good offensive coordinator. He knows how to call plays, but I just don't trust him to win big games, and I don't trust him to like win a championship or anything of significance. So now whether or not they'll win 9 or more games is a different conversation. I'd probably stay away from that if I was Miami. But again, the market I'm looking at for the Dolphins, position of the first player drafted, they got to get an offensive lineman. That's the favorite at plus 120. The Dolphins have so many good skill position players, but I mean, Tim, you're not going to be able to do anything if you can't protect the quarterback. Tua, as we know, is a guy with a big injury history under center. So I think the Dolphins got to go offensive line. I would look at that, which is the favorite at plus 120.
Yeah, they need help both offensive line and defensive line, just in the trenches. And, PJ, this is honestly early on. I know we were ways away from training camp, but early on, this is one of my best bets. I am fading the Dolphins. I really think that this is Mike McDaniel's final year in Miami. His record against winning teams is abysmal. You mentioned Tua Tagovailoa and how we know his injury history. He's one bad fall away from missing several games with the head injuries that he's suffered. I just see this Dolphins team as frauds, and I could really see the bottom come out.
I'm with you. I haven't liked this Dolphins team the last couple years. I would not go over 8.5 for sure. It would only be under or nothing for me. But yeah, I would look that direction. Then again, I think they need to get an offensive lineman. Jets are probably another team you're looking at that could get an offensive lineman. They're minus 145 to get an O-lineman with their first pick in the NFL draft. They get Justin Fields in the offseason. Still got Garrett Wilson there. You have Breece Hall. Their win total's at 5.5, which I kind of think is too low.
I agree. That kind of jumped out to me. Now, am I slamming the over? Probably not. I mean, I'm not the biggest Justin Fields fan. That being said, I felt like he held his own when he was starting games at the beginning of the year for the Steelers, and that was a shock when Mike Tomlin opted to bench him in favor of Russell Wilson, and the move paid off initially, and then, of course, Russ looked cooked towards the end of the year, but I'm not a fan of the Dolphins, like I was saying. The Patriots, I think they'll take a step further, but it's still a very beatable team. If I had to choose, I probably would go over that 5.5.
I think I would too. I like Justin Fields more than a lot of people. You know, we obviously, Tim, our network, the BetMGM network, we have a lot of people that work in Chicago. So they've seen a bunch of Justin Fields games, and not a lot of people are fans of his. And I think he got a rough deal in Chicago. Eberflus was his head coach. They could never keep the OC consistent. He never walked into a situation anywhere close to what Caleb Williams did in terms of skill position talent, right? And again, this guy's bounced around. Like, he was in Chicago, and then he goes to Pittsburgh, where he plays decent, wins games. Russell Wilson comes in. He doesn't see the field again. So I think going to New York, fresh start, no expectations. People don't think the Jets are making the playoff. I mean, there's nothing that, you know, he just can kind of play ball, and he's got a first-year head coach in Aaron Glenn that is looking for guys to build around. So I'm with you. I like the upside potential of the Jets at 5.5. The Jets are one of those teams that I like because they're in the New York market. I like when they come into a year with, like, nobody talking about them. You know, I don't want the Jets to be like the surprise, the trendy team like they were last year when everybody was picking them to win the division, and we saw how that turned out. I think when it comes to the draft too, Tim, I think they're interesting because they're favored again, -145 to draft an O-lineman. I could see them maybe getting Tyler Warren out of Penn State, the tight end, at +325. But I think the defensive line at +750 is also interesting because, again, Aaron Glenn's a defensive guy, and he wants to build a certain culture and get certain kind of guys in his locker room, and I think he wants that defense to be elite, right? He realizes that, yes, O-lineman is great, to protect the quarterback, but also if I can have one really good side of the ball, that will help them progress and get better quicker. So I think +750, like, for the Jets, maybe to go D-line could be interesting as well.
Well, like you said, I mean, that's Glenn's background, and they have to improve the trenches, both sides of the ball. And we've already said multiple times that this defensive line draft class is really, really deep and really, really talented. And maybe if you're New York, if all things were equal, maybe you're looking to trade back some and you could still pick up an impact defensive lineman. And knowing that you still have so many holes on this team, you get the extra picks.
Could do that as well. The next team up is the Patriots at 7.5, which is really interesting. So this is a team, obviously, big offseason, right? You go out and get Mike Vrabel. They made some moves to bolster the defense, get some guys in the O-line. They got Stephon Diggs as well. To me, the Patriots are simple. Your thoughts on Drake May? Everybody seems to be convinced that the Patriots have found their guy. I'm not as convinced. Not to say I don't think he's not going to be good or that he's going to be a bust. I just think people watched a bunch of his games last year and they're like, oh, New England's found their guy. I need to see more, Tim. I'm not convinced that of the small sample I saw that Drake May now all of a sudden is like he's the dude for sure for New England. That's not saying he won't put up a good year or that he won't be great. But, you know, New England's starting to become that team, too, that we've seen the last couple years. These teams who've had some of the worst records in the NFL make the playoffs, whether it was Houston with Stroud, Daniels with Washington. People kind of think that, like, the Patriots are going to be that team this year. I don't know. I'd probably go under 7.5, if anything.
I completely agree. That 7.5 really jumped off the screen to me. I was thinking, really? The Patriots are 7? And I faded them last year on their win total. I probably will again this year. They've made a lot of moves, PJ, but I don't know. Like, some of them, it's like spending money to spend money. Like Stephon Diggs, giving him all that money coming off the injury last year with the Texans. And I get it. You want to give Drake May some help, some guys to throw to, but it almost seemed like spending money for the sake of spending money. And I think it's probably a 6-7 win team, which is still an improvement over last year. But I'm with you. I would like to see another year of Drake May, at least the first half of next year, before I give a strong statement on him.
And then what's interesting is, at BetMGM, they're minus 150 to draft an offensive lineman with their first pick. I have seen some people mock New England, though, to get Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. We know Vrabel's a defensive guy. He obviously wants to build the trenches in New England. That's what he was able to do with Tennessee, right? He got Simmons on defense. He got Henry on offense. They had Lewan as an offensive tackle. Like, that's when Tennessee was at their best. Great running team, and they could stop the run on defense. That's what he's going to try and turn New England into. So I think if you're betting the Patriots, I think it would be plus 350 with the defensive lineman or edge. Like, if you want to lay the juice at minus 150, I guess. But, like, cornerback and wide receiver are plus 300. That's the second available. I would go D-line and edge. I think that's the play. Obviously, they put corner and wide receiver together, assuming that Travis Hunter could be number 4 to New England. And if he drops that far, certainly that's a conversation the Patriots would have to have. But I think it's going to be D-line at plus 350. It would be the bet that I would make.
And I just have a hard time thinking that Travis Hunter's getting past the Giants. So I don't even know if that comes into play. Do you think he'd get past New York?
So let's talk about that. How do you think the top of the draft's going to play out? Cam Ward, we all expect to go 1 to Tennessee. What do you think Cleveland's doing at 2?
I think Abdul Carter. But it wouldn't shock me, just knowing Jimmy Haslam and how it wouldn't shock me if they took Shedeur.
Shedeur.
It really would not shock me. I mean, him already saying, wow, what a massive swing and miss Deshaun Watson was. And I know they just brought back Joe Flacco a year too late, but it wouldn't shock me. But seeing Abdul Carter team up with Myles Garrett, that would be a lot of fun to watch.
Especially when you got to face Burrow and Lamar 4 times a year. That was my thought, that it'd be Garrett and Carter. I agree with you. Giants at 3. I mean, that's another... Like, do they get Travis Hunter? Do they get a quarterback? I mean, they got Russ. They got Jameis as well. Do they go offensive lineman? Like, what do you think the Giants
I
do?
think it's going to be Hunter. I really do. I think they're going to lean into Travis Hunter and just kind of go best player available. And also, dude, he's an instant star in New York, just given his play style, ability to play both sides of the ball. And he would be a star in New York.
100%. All right, we're going to take a quick time out here on Inside.